Marvel Studios is really going through a lot of changes right now, changes that we are going to start to see this new year in 2024. Some they are voluntarily doing because they think it's what is going to be best for Marvel Studios and the future of the MCU, and some are unfortunately placed upon them, like the Jonathan Majors recasting and the writer strikes and actor strikes that delayed projects. But both of these situations are causing Marvel Studios to have to make some pretty big changes to a lot of key aspects of the Marvel Cinematic Universe moving forward. And today we're going to talk about two of the biggest changes that Marvel Studios has to make that some fans are excited for and some fans are really not excited for. One is the recasting of Sentry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Many of you might have heard this yesterday, but Steven Yeun is no longer going to play Sentry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe's movie, The Thunderbolts. Now, this comes as bad news to some, but good news to others, because he didn't exactly look the role of Sentry. Now, don't get me wrong, he could definitely buff up, and they could definitely give him a long blonde wig. However, some fans were pretty disappointed in this casting. I was looking forward to it, but unfortunately, it looks like Steven Yeun is the one to have dropped out himself. But the big question that everybody is asking right now is, was Sentry a really big part of the Thunderbolts, or was he sort of just a side character? And was he going to pop up later on in the future of the MCU? Well, we're going to break all of that down today in this video, as well as go over some Kang casting announcements. Most of you know Jonathan Majors is out, and Marvel Studios right now is looking to cast a new Kang the Conqueror. But before we dive in, be sure to like this video and subscribe. If you subscribe and leave a comment, you're automatically entered in our giveaway for a chance to win an Xbox Series X, a PS5, some Marvel Legends items, and some DC items as well. The winner gets to pick one item, and we pick one winner at the end of each month. Also, big congratulations to YouTube user at AVR0709 for being the winner of the December giveaway. And again, we're still doing giveaways each month this year. So The Hollywood Reporter was the first outlet to report that Steven Yeun will not star in Marvel's Thunderbolts. They said, like many temples across Hollywood, it was delayed amid the dual writers and actor strikes. And they did not state the actual reason for Steven Yeun not being able to appear in the Thunderbolts movie, but they did say the strikes put schedules in disarray all across Hollywood, simply implying that since the movie got delayed, he can no longer do it anymore. It was delayed over a year, and this really threw his schedule off. They also note that Marvel Studios has never officially announced the casting of Sentry, which is true. Now, the major outlets and major insiders did report this, and it was basically all but confirmed by Marvel Studios. And in fact, we know a decent amount of plot details about Sentry being involved in the Thunderbolts. And yes, he was going to be a pretty significant character, and in fact, it sounded like he was going to be somewhat the main villain at the end of it all. If you're familiar with Robert Reynolds, aka Sentry, you know that it's not just Sentry, but there is something that comes along with him, and that is the Void. And according to previous reports that we heard, the Void and Sentry were kind of going to be what were going up against the Thunderbolts at the end. Or I guess I should say the Thunderbolts were the ones going up against the Void and Sentry at the end. Some have even said this is kind of the suicide mission that the Thunderbolts were going to be sent on, to go up against Sentry and the Void. Now, what's interesting is with this news that Steven Yeun will not star in Marvel's Thunderbolts anymore is the fact that Marvel Studios has very recently met with Ryan Gosling about playing a character in the MCU, and now a lot of people are speculating that these two could possibly be linked. Just because we are finding out now that Steven Yeun is not going to play Sentry doesn't mean that Marvel Studios just recently made the decision. They could have made this decision a while ago, and that could be why they met with Ryan Gosling, because they knew that they needed a new person to play Sentry in the MCU for the Thunderbolts film. Now, of course, keep in mind that Marvel Studios usually meets with actors about multiple different roles, so for those who want him to play Ghost Rider or Nova, that is entirely still possible. But you have to admit, Ryan Gosling, if you throw a long blonde wig on him, could look the part, and very well. We already know he can get jacked for the role. In fact, he's still pretty jacked from filming Barbie, and we know that he can play sort of a rugged role based off of other movies we've seen him in. So as far as casting choices are concerned, I think Ryan Gosling is actually a pretty good choice. And yes, based off of everything that we know, they still do plan to have Sentry be a part of the Thunderbolts film because he was going to be a pretty big character in the movie. Again, it sounded like he was going to be one of the major threats of the film if he wasn't going to be the main villain. From what we knew, he was going to start off good and maybe start off as even a member of the Thunderbolts team, but due to the Void and and his mental conditions. He sort of doesn't have control anymore and can't be controlled, which of course, you know, is what Valentina wants. So she sends the Thunderbolts team to stop him. Again, it sounds like scheduling was the main problem here, not like Marvel Studios decided to scrap the role of Sentry. And again, the way the Hollywood Reporter reported it, it sounds like Steven Yeun was the one who dropped out himself. So for those who still want Sentry in the MCU, don't worry, it sounds like he's still definitely going to be a really big part of this movie. And we can kind of say the same now for Kang. Now, I've seen a lot of mixed comments about this online. Some people say, yes, just recast Kang the Conqueror. Some people say, step away from Kang altogether. Right now, I think we're kind of too deep into the Kang story to simply step away. They've already shown us the Council of Kangs and how many Kang variants out there are. I think recasting would be the best bet here. And as you might have heard, Marvel Studios has already begun the recasting process, which is a pretty decent indicator that they do plan on having Kang the Conqueror back in the MCU, maybe not incredibly far from now. We do know that Marvel Studios kind of wants to lay low for a little bit and kind of have Kang just in the background, because if you hear Kang, you automatically think Jonathan Majors, and they don't want that negative connotation associated with Kang right now. So they might give it some time, but they are right now looking to recast, especially with upcoming films like Avengers 5 and Doctor Strange 3, which we know is going to be a multiversal film. They're going to have to at least mention Kang in these films because he still is the overall looming threat to the multiverse right now. And according to Daniel RPK, Coleman Domingo is reportedly one of the actors that is being considered to replace Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror in the MCU. Many people know him from Fear the Walking Dead, The Color Purple, Candyman, Euphoria, and recently Rustin. Now, he is older than Jonathan Majors. He is 54 years old. So this could mean that Marvel might have a plan of kind of bringing in a Kang the Conqueror who could be older, wiser, stronger than all of the other ones that we've seen so far. Most of us know by now, thanks to insider reports, that the Beyonder Kang variant is going to be the main villain of the Multiverse Saga and Avengers Secret Wars. That is, if Marvel decides not to change their current plans, which they very well could. I do like the idea of going for an older, wiser, and stronger Kang the Conqueror, someone who has possibly already conquered a vast majority of the multiverse, which the other Kangs don't know about. So this variant could have gone on to really ascend above them all and become the Beyonder. Because based off of what we know, essentially, we're going to have a villain in the MCU, which we believe right now is the Kang Trio, that the Avengers basically can't defeat. And that makes sense because they control time. They can see every move, just like we saw in Loki Season 1 and Loki Season 2. He Who Remains could predict everything that Loki and Sylvie were going to do because he saw it already. So according to Alex P at the Cosmic Circus, essentially a bigger villain is going to come in to defeat them, but this bigger and badder and stronger villain is going to have a bigger weakness that the Avengers can exploit to ultimately defeat. So Coleman Domingo is on the list for Marvel Studios. What do you think about that casting choice? Do you like it? Do you not? And also let me know what you think about Ryan Gosling possibly playing Sentry in the MCU. Let me know your thoughts about all this news in the comments down below, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest MCU news. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.